Welcome to another episode of Reading Around the World, only women, non-binary authors, but no men allowed. Do we need a better title? Yes we do, but not today. These are all the countries I've read from in the last video, and today we're gonna go traveling again. Starting off in Albania with EP2. And I love this book. This is probably one of my favorite books of the year. I think I read it this year. I think so, but whatever year I read it from, I think it's one of my favorite books. I felt seen, heard, understood. It was so lovely to see stuff that I've always had in my mind and I was so ashamed to voice said in a book. And this is pretty much a memoir but also political analysis, because the author Leah Ip is now a professor of politics at UCL, if I'm not wrong. And the memoir is about her childhood growing up towards the end of the authoritarian communist regime in Albania. And I might be biased in saying that I really enjoyed this book because I come from a previously communist authoritarian country in Romania, and I am also, like, Leah Ip is very left-wing. I don't know what, maybe she's a socialist, I don't know exactly. I've not heard her like use an ideology to identify herself, but we're both very left-wing and coming from similar backgrounds. And she was asking questions that I've asked myself all the time, but I didn't dare to say out loud in like communist left-wing circles in the UK, because I don't know, I just feel like we are kind of dismissed as Eastern Europeans. I was like, oh, not that kind. Like, yeah, but what about my experiences? Like, you're just using all these words that I have severe trauma attached to, and I have experienced like partially of a lot of things that we're not gonna talk about it. Like, even the word, the linguistics of calling yourself a communist is the attachments of like, yes, but those trigger warning for everything. Everything is traumatic in every video I make, so I'm sorry. For a really long time, saying I'm a communist made me think of like, oh, these are people who murder my family. How can I call myself the word that they've ascribed to themselves? Like, just the linguistics of it, it's so deep and hard to pinpoint. And I'm going on too much about this book, but it was nice to see someone who identifies as left-wing analyze a past where a dictatorship that was saying that they're left-wing and how that impacted her childhood and her becoming a professor and her perceiving the ideology of different people within a dictatorship and how their ideology changed as capitalism was instated. It's just a very interesting analysis, and she has the words to explain it properly. For the next book, we're traveling to Canada, and I chose the book Children of Paradise because I just read it and it was long-listed for the Women's Fiction Prize. Oh, what is the name of that? Long-listed for the Women's Prize of Fiction. I'm not gonna get it right, I don't know. But that's why I read it, because it was long listed for that award. And like I said, I'm not the hugest fan of fiction, so I have a bit of a bias. If it's non-fiction or something that's more like memoir, I will rank it higher. So I was not that big of a fan of this book. But it is showing some really vivid characters. It is about this old cinema that everybody seems to be very attached to, and people that, all the workers' lives inside that cinema. And it has a little bit of anti-capitalism towards the end, which is the part that I like, surprisingly, when the cinema is being transferred into a corporation and how the process changes to make it into a chain. But I don't know, I'll give it like, I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. Next we're going to Ireland, and I have an interesting choice for Ireland, and I will not explain further. My choice is Honey and Issue's Guide to Fake Dating, which the author was born in Bangladesh, and we have 2 Bengali Muslim main characters, and it's queer and young adult and cute and a very adorable book. But she lives in Ireland and the book is based in Ireland, and this is gonna be a common theme to this series of people born in a place and living in another place and have moved to this place, and they see themselves as like multiple nationalities, and I'm like, I need to put you in a box. I just need you to pick a box. Just get in a box. And this is mainly because I want to read another book from Bangladesh and not another book from Ireland. So yay. And it also fits the theme of trying to include more LGBTQ authors as well, if I have the chance, from each country. And it's honestly such a cute story. Like, I would honestly describe it as Heartstopper if the main characters were Muslim girls. Like, it's that vibe. It feels very slice of life. Next up, we're going to Israel, and boy do I have an interesting choice for Israel as well. My choice is Regretting Motherhood, because this book is iconic. I did not realize the writer is from Israel when I first read it, but this is the only book I could find on this topic, and it's easy to read, and it's accessible and a bit dramatic, which you need, you know, in a good book. And regardless where or not it's coming from, I've been recommending this to a lot of people just because it was so insightful and so hard to find books about like the bad side of motherhood, although this is such a common experience. And I'm not even sure, like maybe this is the more common experience actually. And I will say, just to avoid like preconceptions, regretting motherhood is not about like hating your children, but more about like the fact that raising children is very hard, and in today's society we are pushed to like be independent. You don't get much help, figure it out, you're on your own, everybody else is doing it, and we're all sad and miserable, so get on with it. And I would also say that it's not really a book per se, it's more of a study, a long study, but it includes interviews from Israeli women and their experience with motherhood, which I think it's very on theme with like feminism, women reading. Up next, we're going to Italy, and for Italy, of course, I love Elena Ferrante. I choose Elena Ferrante, and this is the only like book series, and the entire book series is fantastic, but it's the only book that I've read that portrays such complex female friendship, going from extreme obsession to copying each other, to being jealous of each other, to being completely putting each other on pedestals, and you will always be better than me, but also I hate you, and you are my best friend, but also like please get out of my life. Absolutely insane vibe. I relate completely. That makes absolute sense to me. I also read it as queer platonic. That might be just me, and I did start this book twice in the TV series as well, and I was like, ew, I hate these characters, they're so unlikable. Why would I read so much about characters that I dislike? And then I started it again because I kept hearing people recommending it, and I loved it. And books are just a state of mind depending on like where we are, and we're like, now I like them, and it makes sense that I hated them the first time because they are me and I hate me. Next up, we're going to Lebanon with Ruby Hamad's White Year, Brown Scars, How White Feminism Betrays Women of Color. And I would kind of say that this is pretty US, UK centric. It doesn't refer to Lebanon as far as I remember, and in fact I didn't even know the author is from Lebanon until I started this challenge. But I chose to use this book because it fits perfectly into the feminist, intersectional, anti-racist book, and it's so educational. I've really traumatic, but I really enjoyed having my mind changed and having my mind challenged. I think I've read it like maybe a year ago when I was still figuring out intersectionality and how feminism, like white liberal feminism, is not great. And this was a great book for that purpose. And while it is not focused on Lebanon on itself, and I'm trying to do the around the world book challenge, I still want to choose great books. So it's a choice about like, do we have the representation of the city, or do we have representation of the book? And so for this case, I'm kind of going with, this is a great book, I recommend it, it's fantastic. I'm not gonna try to find something better, although maybe there are something that's better from Lebanon, I don't know. Next up, we're going to Peru, and again, I don't know if I'm picking the best book, but I'm picking books that I love and that I recommend to people. So I'm choosing the book Migrants, which is an illustration book by Isa Watanabe, and I really loved it. I just love the way it portrays. It's about a group of refugees traveling, but everybody in the book is an animal. So I don't know why the perspective of changing humans into animals makes us shift our perspective. It is a very short illustration book, but I found it very impactful, and it's about a group of refugees traveling, except it changes the refugees into animals, and just the perspective of like changing humans to animals changes the way you see things. Up next, we're going to Sweden with the one and only Greta Thunberg, which I found out we're saying her name wrong, so Greta Thunberg, I hope this is closer to her real name. I fully think Greta is a living historical figure, and we need to show her more appreciation because she's been doing a lot. She's doing a lot. This book is fantastic. It's so comprehensive. It answers every question you could possibly have about climate change, and it's intersectional, and it's radical, and it's just everything that I would want in a book. It's there, except it's a big book, which I'm not a fan of. I did zone out at parts. It's a lot of information. It covers things from like how climate change is racist, from how climate change affects women, how corporations started climate change, how oil company cover up for their like carbon footprint, and how they invented the concept of carbon credit. It just exposes everyone. She just really goes hard. This is a hard book. I don't know, I'm really excited about this book. I'm such a fan. It's almost like a call to revolution prompted by the biggest threat we face right now, climate change. And I think that is enough for one video. I don't know, again, how many countries have we done? No idea. I'm gonna find out in the title. You're gonna find out in the title. But I'll see you in the next one with more books around the world, and hopefully more books that I love. See you in the next one. Bye!